Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Net Zero Nuclear Pavilion. Today we have a very interesting topic that we'll discuss. So the topic that we'll be dwelling on today is the link between energy poverty and environmental pollution. For this moment, I would like to thank our panelists for agreeing to come to our discussion today to give us an insightful discussion on this topic. With me, I have Alfred, all the way from Sierra Leone, who is a Leotech CEO, as well as a leader for the innovation in a university in Sierra Leone. Could you tell us what is this topic means in your own geographic and economic context?
Yes, Amanda, thank you so much. I am Alfred Nbayo from Sierra Leone, and I am president of the Sierra Leone Young Generation in nuclear. I sat back there and I was thinking what to say because our problems are a bit similar across Africa, and my colleagues from Sub-Saharan Africa have already kind of deliberated on most of the common problems we face as Africans in relation to energy access and pollution. But I want to deviate a bit to look at energy poverty from a different perspective according to the IRENA. Energy poverty is mostly considered in terms of access, but I think according to IRENA, it goes beyond access. If your electricity generation is mostly dependent on dirty fuel or fuel that is not clean and sustainable, then there are chances that you are also energy poor. Because imagine now we are all talking about decarbonization. So just imagine we wake up overnight and we say we want to remove all the 100 million barrels of oil that is consumed per day across the globe. Most economy will wreck simply because they depend so much on dirty fuel. So like Ia rightly said, we have economies that are not energy poor directly according to access, but they are also energy poor because they are dependent so much on dirty fuel. For my country, Sierra Leone, we have less than 26% national electrification rate, and you would only imagine how that looks like. You have 8 million people living on less than 100 megawatts of electricity. That is the reality of our challenge, and it becomes so difficult for you to even talk about national development, let alone talk about climate adaptation, because you cannot really adapt to climate or be climate resilient if you do not have access to electricity, because most of the enabling technologies you need to adapt to climate, they all depend on electricity for them to function. You need early warning systems, you need a lot of other things you need to put in place to be resilient to climate change, and all of these things need electricity. So we are here talking about climate change for the 29th time since COP was found, and still the globe is consuming 100 million barrels of oil per day. So this makes sense somehow, but it doesn't make sense all the way around. And Africa is bearing the heavy weight of climate change. Africa contributes less than 4% to global emission, but yet it is disproportionately affected by the effect of climate change. In my country, Sierra Leone, we've lost almost $100 million to just climate-related disasters. Just last year, we had flash floods. Of course, that is just on a yearly basis, flash floods in Freetown. A much devastating one was a mudslide that was caused by torrential rain, and you have mudsliding downhill, which led to the loss of many lives. Around 5,000 people died, and of course, a property loss that is equivalent to hundreds of millions of dollars. So this is the reality of our situation in African countries, and I strongly believe that the way we generate and consume energy has been the greatest determinant of global emission and pollution. So I really look forward to discussing more on this in the subsequent questions as the panel continues.
Alfred, what is the role of technology and innovation in bridging the energy access gap and fighting environmental pollution as a result?
Thank you so much, Amanda. I so much believe in the potential of science, innovation, and technology in addressing the climate challenge and also bridging the energy gap. Mostly when I listen to Ia speaks about how much they take electricity for granted in Sweden, I see a world of difference. You see one side of the globe taking something for granted that could save millions of lives on the other side of the globe, and that is the reality. Patricia rightly mentioned how much, for instance, clean cooking solution is a life-saving technology in the global south, and she went further, making a call on our stakeholders in the African Union, which is very important, on them taking action on democratizing some of these solutions. As we sit here and speak, 1.1 million Africans are still dying because of indoor pollution, and over 80% of these women and children who die because of indoor pollution even before they understand how their environment looks like. So this is the reality of Africa, and technology has developed so rapidly, and most of the solutions that we need to address some of the challenges in Africa are already out there. We have technology solutions for clean cooking. We have proven energy solutions that can really boost our economies. We have proven data sources and ways of getting early warning signs in communities for them to be resilient and for them to be aware of climate change around them. But yet still, these technologies have not been scaled up in the African context. There are chances you can say, yes, it's because of finance, but I strongly also believe that the right policies and the right partnerships are also part of the problem. Because, for instance, you have the liquefied petroleum gas that is accessible, for instance, in Freetown, Sierra Leone, where I live. But then you see as there is disruption in the global supply chain, the price soars up, and before you imagine, someone who had bought liquefied petroleum gas for cooking at home just ends up discarding it because it is not affordable. And then they go back to charcoal or go back to using biomass for cooking. And this is only, in fact, accessible only in the city, the capital. When you go in the rural communities, you don't have access to those solutions. So I strongly believe African governments and stakeholders, even as we, as the science-driven people and the people who are driven by technology, work so hard in the research and development of solutions to climate change and bridging the energy gap, stakeholders should also make those policies that can ensure the democratization of some of these technologies to ensure that the technologies reach the last mile users. Because we can certainly develop the technology, but if it is too expensive and it is not affordable, then it is worthless, because the last mile users are mostly people that are living below the poverty line. We are talking of providing clean cooking solutions for people that are living below $1 a day in sub-Saharan Africa. So basically, the governments, the policymakers have to put policies in place. Let's say, for example, you subsidize the importation of clean cooking solutions in your country, and then as they reach in your country, the price is affordable for the local communities for them to be able to afford it. So technology would really work so hard in providing the solutions, but the stakeholders also really need to put those policies in place to ensure that technology and solutions reach the last mile users.
We have seen in the past 2 days there has been a historic moment of tripling nuclear. Ghana and Morocco are the only African countries that pledged to this. What is your perspective on the pledge, and if it will address the energy poverty and environmental pollution in your countries and affected communities?
Thanks to Net Zero Nuclear, I was given the opportunity to be there on the scene where 22 countries signed a declaration of tripling down on nuclear power production. And I am so happy that we have 2 African countries also that we are there. That is an amazing thing. My country, Sierra Leone, is already a signatory to the Pelliandamba Treaty and also IAEA member states. And for the past years, I haven't heard anybody mention anything that has to do with at least building the human capacity in nuclear science and technology. We do not have dedicated courses for nuclear science and technology in our universities in Sierra Leone. So the signing on the declaration of the tripling of the nuclear power production by 2050 is so amazing. But I'm really looking forward to how this is achieved. I am skeptical on whether or not it is going to be more of a talk show or just a paperwork or theoretical kind of thing than something that can actually be achieved in terms of the context of Africa. I think the governments across Africa, even including those who have signed those declarations, should focus more on taking those bold steps and actions to actually achieve those goals than just saying that they are part of it. They were there for the declaration, they pledged, they signed, and then their communities and their countries are still not taking the bold actions to achieve the purpose of those declarations. And of course, my country, Sierra Leone, I'm really hoping to see first step to include nuclear science and technology dedicated courses in our universities. I think we'll start from there.
Thank you very much for very enlightening discussion. The question that I have is related to what Alfred, I believe, has mentioned, is that if it's not affordable, it's useless. And as you know, by no means nuclear energy is cheap. At least the capital cost is quite expensive. So how do you think, moving forward in Africa, a nuclear energy can be implemented basically to solve the issue of energy poverty? I know there is a lot of discussion in the nuclear industry on the small modular reactors. They come at a much lower capital cost. They are safer. So do you think a large-scale nuclear power plants solution should be implemented in Africa, or rather a more economical small modular reactors?
So basically, I have a mentor that is based in the UK. He said he has worked in a nuclear submarine for some 15 years or so. And most times when I discuss nuclear with him, one of the points of skepticism he would express is that Africa does not have the human resource or human capacity to own and manage nuclear power plants. So to some extent, he is right. Probably if you build a nuclear power plant, for instance, in Sierra Leone, there are no nuclear energy engineers in Sierra Leone. So probably you would have to depend on experts from overseas to come and manage those plants. So I think building the human resource or the human capacity in Africa also to be able to manage those technologies, to own them locally, would really make sense.
Thank you so much. And we have come to the end of our discussion, and I would like to give most thanks to Net Zero Nuclear for giving us the incredible opportunity of organizing this in their pavilion. And we do not inherit our world or our earth from our ancestors, but we borrow it from our children.